Due to the news of the active buildup of nuclear arsenal, the world is observing a rush to buy bunkers for the next 5 years to guard against a nuclear catastrophe. However, experts warn that such bunkers will not protect against a real nuclear bomb. Essentially, marketers are selling the idea of fake safety. Well, the idea is that it's better to have a bunker and not need it than to need a bunker and not have one. And this question is posed not only by simple mortals. Last year, billionaire Mark Zuckerberg, one of the main architects of the modern world, began buying up massive plots of land on the Hawaiian island of Kauai. There, Zuckerberg and his wife Priscilla Chan are building a gigantic complex known as Ranch Koa Lau. Construction, by estimates, will cost more than 400 million Australian dollars. The site, more than 5.5 million square meters in size, is enclosed by a 2-meter wall and patrolled by security guards riding ATVs around the perimeter beaches. Several hundred local Hawaiians work in Zuckerberg's estates. They have pledged not to disclose exactly how many of them there are and what exactly they are doing. Rumor has it that construction of a massive underground bunker is planned on this ranch. This detail appears to be of particular interest to conspiracy theorists. Meanwhile, the interest of the general public in the bunker industry is fueled by sensational headlines like "Billionaires bunkers," "Insane with nukes and flamethrowers." This is one of the projects in the United States that is supposed to be completed by the year 25. Corbi, president and founder of a company in Virginia, is developing individual projects for ultra-wealthy clients. The client said, "I want to be sure that no one can get to my family." There was no need to persuade the builders for a long time. They designed a ditch 9 meters deep with liquid hotter than water. The only access to the island is a suspension bridge. The project also includes water cannons that can knock down helicopters, an artificial mountain as a natural reinforcement, and a tunnel with flamethrowers, gasification systems, and a steel protective wall. Corbi is not used to eccentric clients. It was him who had to build a 17-story residence of business magnate Mukesh Ambani in Mumbai, worth $5 billion. This is the largest bunker factory in the world, located in Texas. The modular construction allows to build bunkers for any client requests. The stages of construction are as follows. First, it's necessary to excavate a construction pit of considerable size at the selected place under the building, approximately 10 meters deep. Then, a special cushion is prepared, on which the assembly and installation of all the submerged equipment will take place. When the bottom of the pit is ready for further work, a powerful crane with a transport platform moves the bunker itself to the prepared cushion. Then, the modules are connected. The utilities are connected for the full and comfortable functioning of the shelter. And of course, where would we be without the interior finish? In the end, if you're going to store your grandmother's pickles with tomatoes in such a super tomb, everything should be beautiful. Engineers involved in the design of private bunkers say that having swimming pools and movie theaters underground is pretty normal. Reid Hoffman, a regular who communicates with transnational corporation owners, stated that more than half of the billionaires from technology companies in California are preparing for the worst-case scenario. Perhaps they know something. Otherwise, the demand for private bunkers in the world constantly grows. In some of them, there are special rooms with evacuation hatches, using which you can get to the bunker through a tunnel without going up to the surface. Someone equips secret drops to the hideout right from their own house. A good solution. In case of the apocalypse, there might just not be any time for extra movement. On the other hand, some have hidden underground facilities on land plots far away from their main place of residence. The wealthy are gambling that their secret shelters will remain undiscovered during catastrophes. It should be noted straight away that nobody usually knows about the contents of these underground super shelters. Billionaires try to hide the fact of construction from everyone, even the government. Sometimes businessmen deliberately build secret facilities in the territories of poor countries, where they manage to avoid the need to register construction due to general confusion. One of the most popular disclosed bunkers is located in the state of Indiana and resembles more a comfortable 4-star hotel which includes a cinema, sports training equipment, geothermal heating, and a year's supply of fuel and products. And the facility called Europa 1 was built back in the time of the Cold War. The facility includes 34 residential complexes, each covering more than 20 square meters. We would need a separate clip to list all the facilities in this bunker. So let's just say inside there's a cinema, pool, gym, lavish baths, and several rooms that are not public knowledge. Only the building company and the owner of the shelter know what's there. By the way, what would you put in your bunker if you had the chance to build one? Write in the comments. One of the most expensive and elaborate apocalypse bunkers is located in the site of an old missile silo dating back to the Cuban Missile Crisis in Kansas. It is a 15-story underground residential complex. The area is securely guarded. To get inside the building, you need to pass through the checkpoint, followed by steel doors that weigh 8 tons. According to the information posted on the engineering company's website, this fortified building can withstand a nuclear war, epidemics, and natural disasters. Inside, there is a water park, a medical center, a dog walking park, a rock climbing wall, a library, a gym, a launch zone, and even a shooting range. Walking dogs right under the ground without surfacing, rich people can afford it. Each room has a window that simulates a street view. This helps maintain psychological stability for the inhabitants. What's happening outside the bunker is being broadcast on the screens. In addition to food supplies, the house has containers for fish farming and a compact vegetable growing system. So you could live in such a property for a very long time. Often, developers try to ensure that all systems inside bunkers are automated. Underground homes are equipped with autonomous climate and ventilation systems, water generation units, and purification facilities. Some people order home restaurants, wells, and even power stations for themselves. Engineers strive to make everything so that one can live in an underground home without support from the outside. Some want to preserve not only themselves, but also ask designers to add a collection of rare animals, an archive of valuable artifacts, and even a DNA storage for species preservation to the shelter. Billionaires show particular interest in shelters in New Zealand. There, whole settlements are made out of bunkers. The founder of one of the companies that builds these says that the average cost of each facility is $8.5 million. The design includes 9 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, a garden, a master suite, a garage, an office, and a fitness center. One might wonder, who would buy such an expensive underground property? During the pandemic, Silicon Valley IT magnates started snapping up very important person refuges. However, experts say that New Zealand is not the best place for siting doomsday bunkers. This area is prone to tsunamis, and underground structures face significant flooding risks in a catastrophic event. Researchers assert that the super bunker in New Zealand was purchased by Jeff Bezos, the founder. Bill Gates took care of his refuge back in the year 2015. He owns a whole network of bunkers spread across various states. They all are independent facilities, and their exact number is unknown. In Russia, private secret facilities are usually made in the suburbs of Moscow, which is unsurprising. For example, researchers became aware of one of the hideouts when in the 18,000s a building in a cottage village on the Novorizhskoye highway was put up for sale for more than $1 million. The house was equipped with a bomb shelter that cannot be seen from satellites and is capable of providing protection in case of a war involving nuclear weapons. According to engineering companies, the cost of a bunker in Russia starts from 7 million rubles. The price depends on various factors, most notably the size of the shelter and how long the client plans to stay in it without contacting the outside world. It seems that billionaires will always find ways to save their lives hundreds of different ways, while ordinary mortals will only be able to watch the apocalypse unfold. However, there are exceptions to this rule. Some manage to build an underground shelter without having a lot of money. It turns out to be budget-friendly, but effective. So, for example, the largest private bunker in North America was built by a 75-year-old Canadian engineer-electrician named Bruce Beach. This old man foresaw a global catastrophe back in the Cold War years. It was then, while still a young man, he decided to protect himself from the inevitable, as it seemed to him at the time, death. And he bought over 40 decommissioned school buses. He literally buried them into the ground, filled them with concrete, and covered them with a 4-meter layer of soil. In the end, a private bunker with an area of 1 square kilometer was built within 2 hours' drive from Toronto. For many decades, Bruce was engaged in laying communications. Now there is electricity, water supply, sewage, a special ventilation system, and a telephone line in the basement. It's amazing that one man managed to build a hideout where up to 500 people can be accommodated. The shelter has bedrooms, toilets, dining kitchens, food lockers with temperature control, huge tanks with clean water, and even a children's room. Of course, there are no luxuries that come with expensive bunkers. Bruce is quite old now, and most likely the bunker will be of no use to him. However, the man continues to keep the dream of his whole life in working condition. But let's get back to the simple guy, Mark Zuckerberg. From the bird's flight high, the traces of the bunker in case of apocalypse are not particularly visible. Mark himself writes in social networks that he became an ordinary farmer, started breeding large horned cattle on the Koala Ranch in Kauai. And my goal is to produce the highest quality beef in the world. I will breed Wagyu and Angus. They'll grow, fed on macadamia nut flour and beer that we grow and produce right here on the ranch. And he posts pictures with a huge piece of seared beef compared to photos of his child digging into a sweet potato. One of the wealthiest people in the world writes, "My daughters help plant macadamia trees and take care of various animals." We are just at the beginning of the journey, and it's nice that each season brings some improvements. This is my most delicious project. Among other plans of Zuckerberg, there are the preservation of the wild nature, the revitalization of local plants, organic farms for the cultivation of turmeric and ginger, as well as partnership with nature conservation experts on Kauai to protect local flora and fauna. The implementation of these plans will have a much more noticeable impact on Kauai than the construction of a bunker, no matter how many rooms it has. The founder is not the only billionaire building gigantic complexes in Hawaii. Back in 2002, Oprah Winfrey bought a place on the island of Maui, and since then she has bought additional parcels of land totaling more than 650,000 square meters. Larry Ellison, the co-founder of a technology company, bought almost the entire Hawaiian island of Lanai in 2012. 2 years ago, billionaire Frank Vandersloot bought a ranch covering 2,000 acres south of Zuckerberg's possessions. As wealthy people appear here, locals often get pushed off their lands, sometimes by force. This is a consequence of complex land legislation in Hawaii, where property rights and management are not legally recognized for the indigenous people. At first glance, it might seem that all these tycoons are preparing for a 20th century-style apocalypse, as depicted in countless disaster movies. But that's not the case. Yes, their vast estates are indeed equipped with bunkers, and they use technologies traditionally associated with preparing for a global disaster. For instance, the Rancho Koala mansions are connected by underground tunnels leading to a vast shelter. However, in reality, Zuckerberg, Winfrey, Ellison, and their ilk are engaged in far more ambitious projects. They are striving to create entirely self-sufficient ecosystems, where the land, its usage, the artificial environment, and all activities within it are controlled and managed. One man, more reminiscent of a medieval feudal lord than capitalists of the 21st century. Many intelligent people note that the technology industry has created a new form of techno-feudalism or neo-feudalism, which is based on the colonization of data and corporations appropriating personal data. Probably every first inhabitant of the planet knows the names of the giants of the American IT industry: Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Alphabet. They are the giants of Silicon Valley. These companies occupy the top lines of the world business ratings. Despite the viral economic crisis, the market capitalization continues to be over $1 trillion for each company. A few other American IT giants have a valuation in the range of $500 billion to $3 trillion. For comparison, the market capitalization of Wall Street's largest bank, JP Morgan Chase, is approximately 3 times less. It doesn't reach $300 billion. and the capitalization of the largest U.S. oil company. It stands at around $860 billion, about 5 times lower than the previously mentioned IT companies. Silicon Valley IT companies, having direct access to billions of people, are in the business of advertising, selling the information they have, collecting it on special orders, and the orders for collections. Requests for collected data started coming from not just businesses, but also U.S. law enforcement and intelligence agencies. Active cooperation of IT corporations with the government in the United States of America began after September 11, 2001, when legislation was adopted to combat terrorism. Then a simplified procedure was introduced for American government agencies and organizations to access personal confidential information from the databases of IT corporations. The Federal Bureau of Investigation (CIA) and other special services gained access without a court order, based on a letter request. 10 years after the events of September 11th, the number of requests for confidential information about American and non-American citizens from competent U.S. authorities was measured in thousands every month. So, in the first half of 2011, the authorities sent over 5,950 requests, about 11,570 users, to the company. The company provided the required data in 93% of cases. Under the banner of the general fight against international terrorism, Washington has allowed requests to be made to American IT corporations and other states, including the Russian Federation. However, this is only in theory. In the first half of 2012, 42 data requests were made from Russia for 47 users, and not one of them was satisfied. But data about requests over the past 5 years, for the entire year of 2015, to the U.S. state agency made 12,523 queries, concerning confidential data of 27,157 accounts. Meanwhile, authorities received satisfactory answers to 79% of the queries. The Russian authorities sent only 27 queries concerning 433 users, but positive results were only obtained on 7% of the queries. In many cases, relations between American IT corporations and corresponding U.S. organizations are not limited to one-time information sharing. At the request or demand of American government agencies, the IT corporation may keep the subject under constant observation for an indefinite period of time. In the letter of request for a conversation about obtaining information, there is usually a reminder that there is no need to block the subject's account. Observation should continue. At the beginning of the 1500th year, the British press published information that the leadership had embarked on a campaign requiring an explanation of the many years of personal correspondence of some site employees to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. According to the available data, information about 3 employees was passed over a 3-year period. Director Julian Assange, in the autumn of 1400 years, stated that he is engaged in espionage at the request of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, National Security Agency, and other American agencies. Moving on. And in total, they spent $54 million lobbying for their interests in Washington over the last 12 months. From the middle of 1914 to the middle of 1920. That's 35% more compared to the year 1915, and almost 500% more than the year 1910. And here is the story with Old Europe. In the year 1911, the European Commission has accused the corporation of abusing its dominant position in the European market. In particular, the search engine's market share in EU online search has approached 90%. Also, European companies that developed the mobile application exclusively used the system that belonged. To fend off EU accusations, the company embarked on a path of buying European officials, hiring them for well-paid positions. In 2011, the company hired 18 European officials, doubling the number from 2010. Special attention in Europe was paid to the United Kingdom, with the number of British officials hired since 2005 amounting to a minimum of 26 people. In the United Kingdom, the corporation hired employees from at least 17 known departments, including the Foreign Office, the Home Office, Education, Transport, the Prime Minister's Office, and the Treasury. The recruited officials helped the company not only to fend off attacks from antitrust agencies, but also to secure new contracts in the European market. The company hired members of the European Parliament, NATO representatives, and officials from the Ministries of Economy of Poland, Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, and Justice of Spain, among others. 5 people from those recruited completed the full cycle. First, they left the government for and then returned to work in the power structures. The process of convergence of special services and IT companies continued in the 2018 year, when the so-called cloud law was adopted in the United States of America. It legally allows U.S. law enforcement agencies to obtain from American IT companies the data of U.S. citizens stored with them upon the availability of a court order. Wherever these data are located, including abroad, on remote servers, as an important component of cloud systems. Since the year 2020, relations between the U.S. government and American IT businesses may enter a new phase. The company has taken the initiative to deepen cooperation. By the end of January 2020, it announced that it starts taking money from special services and police for user data. The cost of obtaining requested information from the database is $45. Monitoring phone conversations is $60. Carrying out a search, gathering necessary information upon request, costs $25. The company justifies the new rule of the game with the constantly growing volume of requests from the authorities. The company's relations with the authorities transitioned to a payable basis. Seemingly nothing personal, just business. What is happening in Hawaii also corresponds to the traditional understanding of feudalism. In the feudal system of medieval Europe, almost everything belonged to the king. The property rights of others depended on their relations with the king. Peasants lived on the land given by the king to the local lord. The workers not only did not own the land, but they didn't even always own the tools they used in their professional activity, such as carpentry or blacksmithing. Here you can easily see the difference between Rancho Culau and earlier attempts by billionaires to build bunkers to save themselves from some looming catastrophes. Let's take, for example, the unsuccessful attempts of a venture capitalist from the establishment. Peter Thiel's failed attempts to build a technological, bunker-like subterranean house of more than 70,000 square meters. The plan was rejected on an island in New Zealand due to a conflict between Thiel and local authorities. Zuckerberg's project does not involve an obvious conflict between the billionaire and the community. It is a business model that leads back to feudalism. This fact is often overlooked when talking about Zuckerberg's crazy Hawaiian estate. More likely, the issue is that billionaires are starting to believe that their survival depends not only on having a concrete bunker in the ground, but also on developing their own ecosystem and controlling it. It would be easy to assume that since some of the world's wealthiest people are buying up properties on remote islands and outfitting them with bunkers, they must have some secret insider information. But the truth is simpler and harsher. The billionaires are building lavish real estate objects because they have the opportunity to do so. In the fourth quarter of 2012, Mark Zuckerberg's net assets reached $170 billion. The Hawaiian fortress for $260 million with all its extravagance makes up less than 2% of this sum. It is clear that members of the Billionaire Bunker Club do not necessarily have to believe in the inevitability of an apocalypse or a social collapse. Since they have much more money than they can spend, they can allocate a small portion of funds to build underground fortresses. Preparing for cataclysms does not make much sense in such countries as India, Cambodia, or Yemen, where dire poverty reigns and hundreds of millions of people survive in conditions that might seem apocalyptic to the well-off inhabitants of the West. Even the middle class in the West can't afford to own multiple pieces of real estate. If you want to live on a safe island, move and work there on a permanent basis. That's why in the first weeks of the pandemic, in the year 2020, people were mass buying toilet paper. This was the cheapest and most convenient way to quickly make noticeable reserves. People felt they were taking action in a difficult situation, not sitting idle. Meanwhile, the desire for bunkers among the wealthy in the West is part of a larger cultural trend, in which ordinary poor people pretend to deride billionaire excesses, while inwardly aspiring to ultra-wealthy status themselves. In their fantasies, they can see themselves at the very top of the inequality pyramid. This is precisely why the popularity of the bunker theme is so high. In the 21st year, it got to the point where Texas bunker salesman Ron Hubbard, the head of the same, appeared in an episode of the series with Kim Kardashian, when construction Kim and Khloe went to try life in a bunker for themselves. Meanwhile, for real billionaires, these shelters are just a small part of a diversified portfolio betting on the future. Other known schemes include investments in space travel, cryonics, that is, freezing the body in hope of future reincarnation, consciousness uploading, and, as with Peter Thiel, flirting with parabiosis, pumping young people's blood into his own veins. Billionaire investment in such projects does not mean they're mad paranoids or possess some secret knowledge about the future. It just means that they have accumulated a lot of spare money that needs to be spent on something. As they say, why did you buy it? Because I can. All this was quite originally shown in one of the funniest series, Love, Death, and Robots. 3 androids wander through a post-apocalyptic world, including through government bunkers and luxury stations of the rich. And the more robots learn about these places, the more they become convinced that the human race was doomed to extinction because of its own stupidity. Fortunately, it's only a biting satire, and in actuality, all is well with humanity. Created the subtitles.